Well, hello, friends, and oh, what's that? You're admiring my mask? Is that what you're talking? Well, yes, I'm sorry, I can take that off now. That's a social distancing, but we want to welcome you to the QCSO Concert Conversations, a wonderful series that we've had to tell you about programs coming up. By the way, if you like that mask, go to the website and you can find a way to have a mask of your very own. But for now, I'm very grateful to be joined, as ever, by our music director of the Quad City Symphony Orchestra, Maestro Mark Russell Smith. Grateful to have you with us.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
And we are also joined by Linda Phan, who is the 2019 Quad City Youth Ensemble Concerto Competition winner. And Linda, let me say what a privilege it is to have you with us. Hello.
Hi.
Hi. Now, before we get started, I just wanted to point out that thanks to the magic of Zoom background downloads, today I get to join you from Herr Mendelssohn's workroom, the Arbeitssaal of the Mendelssohn House in Leipzig in Germany. It's a wonderful place that's lovingly restored by the Mendelssohn Foundation, and I hope you all get a chance to visit it someday. And I think you have, Maestro. I think you've been there.
I have a number of times, actually.
Right. Well, we may talk about that later. But first, while we have Linda's time, and she's a very busy person, we want to talk about Mozart. Now, Linda, tell us a little bit about the competition that you won in order to be here in this capacity on stage with the symphony in the February concerts.
So I had a concerto competition in 2019. I think that it was like during December. And I did prepare a lot for it. And before I came in the competition, I thought about like if I won, then like what a pleasure if like I could like get to play with the orchestra. And actually before I came to the US, I actually did play with about 3 orchestras when I was around 6 to 8. And then the orchestras I played with was really good as well, but like I was really excited if I could win to get to play with an orchestra in the US. So yeah.
Well, 6 to 8, I mean, shoot, you were just a kid. Well, how old are you now?
I just turned 11 in December.
Wow. And you go to school here in the Quad Cities, and we're very grateful for that. But where did you play with orchestras before when you were 6 or 8 years old?
So before I came in the US, I was in Vietnam, so I played with the orchestras in Vietnam.
That's outstanding. And I know, Maestro, throughout the history of classical music, we have great stories of young artists who do extraordinary things. And I'm sure that's why you wanted to showcase someone like Linda.
Well, it works out incredibly well because, of course, I mean, 2 of the great child prodigies are Mendelssohn and Mozart. And, if we had to choose, I mean, it's, it's hard to compare, actually. I mean, these are 2 geniuses that were, of course, composers, but also instrumentalists. And I mean, so the idea of youth, and of course having a very early Rossini piece also, the whole program is really about youth, and having Linda as a soloist, I mean, plays exactly right into that. So it's fantastic. I mean, an 11-year-old Mozart was also playing concerts and making great impressions, so it's really, it's very cool to, to invite someone as young as 11 years old to join the Quad City Symphony.
Well, Linda, you have great skill, but it also takes a lot of work to win competitions like this. Tell us a little bit about how you prepare. How is music part of your daily routine?
I'm not really sure how to explain it, but usually during school time and summertime, then usually I just practice in my breaks, and whenever like I'm kind of tired and I do not want to practice, then usually I'd go on my phone for a little bit, and sometimes I'd hear some different music than classical musics, but sometimes I also listen to classical music. So yeah.
Well, I remember being about your age, a little bit older, when I started to really listen to Mozart's music a little bit differently and thinking, wow, this is really cool and complex. What is it about maybe Mozart in general, or maybe this piece in particular, that you like, that attracts you?
Um, so the reason why I really like this piece, it's because of the melody, and I also really like fast pieces because it's just fun to play with. Like my hands just go like all over the place, and it just feels fun to do that.
Right, and just so you know, the folks that are joining us from home, what we'll be hearing is, and of course my phone, my computer is recycling, is just a movement, right? And so Maestro, tell us a little bit about, was that pre-arranged with Linda, or did you want to do this particular movement?
Well, so each year, the winner of the concerto competition plays with the QCSO. But usually it's in a concert that's, and originally, of course, that's what we originally planned, is we have a side-by-side program with the professional orchestra and the youth orchestras, and the soloist then plays at that. But that, because of COVID, was canceled. And so as we were trying to figure out, what to do and how to handle it, then, when I reprogrammed Masterworks 4, and the youth theme kind of, anyway, the Mendelssohn was original to the program, but that was the only piece that was original to the program. And so the idea of inviting Linda to play, fit perfectly. It fit perfectly because of, it was one movement, and that's with the competition, the winners or the competitors play one movement. And so it was always designed to play a single movement. And so it works out, given the fact that concerts have to be shorter and the size of the orchestra is smaller. There were only certain pieces that fit into the orchestration that we can fit on stage. So we couldn't do, a huge Sibelius violin concerto or something with a bigger orchestra, So anyway, so it worked out fantastically that this is the piece with which she won the competition. So it was just very, it's making the best out of the limitations that the COVID situation brings to us.
Sure. And now, Linda, when obviously we're talking about Mozart, but are there other composers whose violin music you really like to play?
Well, there is Mendelssohn. I kind of like his music because I just like really like how he like phrases his music and the melody that he makes.
So there's that melody thing again. And now you
Mhm.
mentioned that sometimes on your phone, you listen to music from other genres, other types of music.
Mhm.
What have you been listening to lately?
So lately I've been listening to some pop music.
Hmm? Well, I'm pretty much a dinosaur. So could you give me just like one or two examples so I can go listen and maybe get a little cooler?
I've been listening to kind of old songs that I have heard of, and I've just been listening from a music composer, a pop music composer, Billie Eilish, and I've been listening to her Ocean Eyes, and I listened to another pop music composer, which is Aviva, and I like her blackout music.
Well, actually, Linda, that was a trick question because nothing will make me cooler. I'm hopelessly lost, but I do know Billie Eilish. So thank you very much for sharing that with us. Now, Linda, we're going to let you go in just a minute, but is there anything you'd like to share with the people that you'll be performing for? I mean, I imagine when you, obviously it's a little bit different because of COVID, there's going to be an audience. They'll just be on the other side of a screen. What would you like them to know about the art that you're going to be sharing with us?
I'm gonna play Mozart, and some people might like fast music, but some people might also hate fast music, and they like slow music and romantic music. So I just wanted to say that in Mozart, then I think that there's a little bit of both in there. So yeah.
I think you're absolutely right. Any last words, Maestro, for Linda?
Well, no, I'm just looking forward to it. It's we're when professional orchestras, unlike youth orchestras, things happen super quickly. There's two rehearsals. We'll have two rehearsals with Linda, and then boom. And so, I know she's super prepared, and we, like I told you, I was preparing the parts. I was marking the parts and marking the editings and stuff, and so that things can happen quickly and that things happen really kind of in a stylish way. So I'm just really looking forward to it, and it's a youthful piece, just full of energy and full of life, and so it's really it's perfect. It's really perfect. And what can you say about Mozart's music? I mean, he's a perfecter, and yeah, it's just incredibly, just again, full of life, and it's going to be lots of fun.
Well, Linda, I just want to thank you for all you do, the talent that you share with us here in your home community in the Quad Cities. Thank you for doing that. I know you're going to have a great time at the concert, and I wish you all the best and good luck in the school year ahead, okay?
Thank you.
All right, well, we'll see you later. Great. Well, Maestro, we got a couple of other folks to talk about today. And by the way, wasn't that delightful?
11, man. I mean, I knew she was young, but I mean, hearing her say, I just turned 11 in December, it's like, wow, geez.
Well, what an extraordinary young artist. And thank you for your role in introducing
it'll be lots of fun.
Her to us. Okay, we're talking about this youth theme. And one sign that it's a youthful composition is when you see the number 1. So Giacomo Rossini's Sonata number 1 is what's going to kick us off. Tell us about this work and why you wanted this to open our time together.
Well, so, I mean, as maybe I said, I can't remember if you're on or off camera, the Mendelssohn Italian Symphony, the 4th Symphony, is from the original program. The original program for the full orchestra was kind of a travel log. Actually, the idea of the original program was composers writing about places that they're not from. So we had Elgar writing about Italy, and we had Mendelssohn, a German, writing about Italy, and we had, anyway, we had Americans writing about anyway, it was that was kind of the whole idea, and just kind of a nice potpourri of pieces. And so, knowing that the Italian symphony could work, given the constraints of the size of the orchestra, it's about as big as we can get with social distancing. It is as big as we can get. So I kept that, and so then kind of went the Italian way. The child prodigy composer idea with Mendelssohn, and of course with Mozart, and then Linda's concerto appearance. Anyway. So then I was looking for something to start it off, and we've been having such fun with strings only pieces, and I wanted something Italian actually. And so figuring out what that was, I kind of just stumbled on these Rossini sonatas, string sonatas. Rossini was well, first of all, just totally a man of the theater, but early on, his lyrical gift. And the time in which he was writing it, it's just a little bit after Mozart. And so the style and the lyricism and Rossini absolutely has already established his voice. And so you hear the operas, and you hear kind of, you hear basso buffo from the basses, and you hear, anyway, you really hear what Rossini would become. But these are youthful works, and for strings, and actually, interestingly, no violas. We have violins, cellos, and basses. No violas for whatever strange reason. So that's a bit interesting as well. But these are just really fun, kind of divertimento like pieces that are just beautiful.
So but you did mention this. I mean, Rossini is just sort of inherently theatrical. I mean, we think about the operas, even the overtures to his operas seem to tell stories.
Oh,
right. Right. And so what stories, what images are conjured in your mind in this sonata? Maybe we will steal your images.
Well, I mean, there's kind of the third movement is kind of a rustic dance. I mean, kind of a folky dance, earthy and vibrant. Second movement, there are 3 movements. Second movement is just elegant and lyrical. And the first movement is actually kind of Mozartian in a way. I mean, it's the most classical. And so it's structurally, again, it's a very young Rossini. So he's kind of playing within the boundaries, and he's not, it's not a theatrical work per se. It's not an opera. And so there's not all this kind of extra musical things that have to come into play. So it's really lyricism and kind of a young composer just starting to burst forth a bit. So, I mean, specific imagery, not really, but certainly stylistic and kind of,
but I also
really virtuosic. It's really virtuosic, and so it's very theatrical and panache and all that.
I wasn't trying to fish for this music automatically transports you to Italy. but it's not at all surprising that this music is Italian. I mean,
No, well, no question. And the energy and the gestures and actually the virtuosity required. I mean, if you know the overtures and kind of how notey everything is, and kind of the frivolity, but also the virtuosity. I mean, it's even super early Rossini like this, absolutely, it's hard for the players, and it has to sound just totally tossed off. And that's the big challenge. I mean, there's tons of notes, and it's also a piece that's not overly familiar. I mean, I know QCSO's never done it, and they're actually rarely done. And so it's not, you know, they're hard pieces that people have in their fingers because they played it a few times, but this is not one of them. So it'll be, you know, I don't know if the QCSO members are like thanking me or cursing me right now. You know, I don't know, because thanks for introducing us to a new piece, or geez, thanks a lot for giving us all these notes to play. But it's just fun. It's just fun and you know, unabashed, enthusiastic, young, you know, exuberant music.
Well, this is all prelude to the guy that I love to talk about, and that is Felix Mendelssohn. And I was intentional about this shot because a couple of things about the Arbeitssaal of the Mendelssohn House that struck me is that desk accompanied him on some journeys. They packed that desk along because he liked to work at it. Right. Imagine, you know, getting that through TSA as you're flying MSP to MLI sometime. But also above the desk, you see some small framed images. Those were sketches he made and watercolors, tiny watercolors he made while he was traveling. He was a great traveler and a journeyer. And what strikes me is through works like this, he takes us there, right? Not just in the 21st century, but his own compatriots in Leipzig who would never go to Italy, or the Hebrides, or, you know, he took them there. And how do you do that musically?
Well, look, I mean, he is among the most talented musicians. I mean, he's up there with Mozart. I mean, writing the octet at age 16, Midsummer Night's Dream overture at age 17. I mean, just the talent, the God-given talent so early on, and intelligence, you know. And his family was wealthy, and they had the wherewithal to travel. I mean, he was like educated in the best sense. I mean, you know, letters and painting. I mean, he was a really good artist. I mean, I've been to the Mendelssohn house, and I was like, golly, I mean, it's just such an impressive, like, graphic artist as well. And so to be able to be so good so young, you know, he was a virtuoso pianist. His family, I mean, it's quite a story. He was gifted and was, again, given gifts, but he used them incredibly well. And, you know, met Goethe, traveled around, you know, went on the Italian journey, like Goethe kind of followed that route. I mean, such a smart guy from such a smart family, and just was able through his music, just through his just natural gifts and facility, just to like emote or express whatever he wanted to.
So I want to pick on that just a little bit, because it's that notion of him as an artist, right? So Bach was phenomenal. Mozart was phenomenal. You're giving us all these great guys. Rossini, phenomenal. But what separates guys like Mendelssohn and Beethoven was that sort of holistic artistic temperament. And Beethoven maybe not quite as refined, but I'd say Mendelssohn is equal parts philosopher and poet and painter, right? Along with this great music that he left us.
Right. I mean, it's an incredible mind. You know, he was also a conductor and a leader, yes. And, you know, the first conductor of the Gevant house, and you know, brought Bach's music back into everyone's consciousness. And I mean, it's quite a story. And I mean, for me, first and foremost, he's a musician, yeah. But again, he's a painter and a reader, and you know, it's an intellect that's just really, really impressive.
I do want to ask you more about his role as a conductor, because that was rather formative too. But before we get away from this other genius, one of the things his family gave him was, I think, he and his sibling, the first edition of Shakespeare translated into German. Yeah. Right when it was coming out at the very beginning of the 1800s. So, I mean, they devoured that stuff. But he really he had an effect on conducting that's still around today. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, you know, the idea, well, first of all, I mean, he after the St. Matthew Passion had been basically unplayed for 100 years, he resurrected it and gave a performance in Leipzig that, you know, was revolutionary or revelatory, I think, for any musicians who didn't really know the music of Bach. So he, you know, he grew up playing the well-tempered clavier. He grew, you know, I mean, he was German. He was incredibly German, but also a man of the world. And so his taste and the kind of what he expected musically, he was a very elegant conductor, and he was a very kind of stylish guy, and you know, anyway, his music, I mean, some people think his music is too facile. It's like it's not deep enough, but you know, I disagree. You know, he, I mean, he has his own voice, just like Rossini, just like Mozart, but he has his own voice, and his voice is classical, quote unquote. It's more classical than other composers of his time. Just the structure and the kind of lightness of touch, but so expressive and so beautiful and just so perfectly put together.
Well, then the other thing you mentioned, the Gewandhaus Orchestra. So that was kind of a new model, right? It's not at somebody's court, right?
Right.
It had to be accountable to an audience, right? So are we seeing in the Gewandhaus and his willingness to be part of that sort of this entrepreneurial spirit that, of course, had its own impact on music ever since?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, the big difference is, like you said, it's no longer it's the town's orchestra, and it's not the emperor's orchestra or this prince or this, you know, this Graf or whatever. So that's a big difference. Becoming, you know, kind of the central focus of music for a community. I mean, that's again kind of a relatively new thing. And had become a leader. I mean, he would conduct, you know, community choruses, and I mean, he was just a man of many talents. And the idea of somebody having a career as a conductor, that was pretty new, you know, and because it was less of a thing, and the orchestras, you know, that just wasn't a thing to be a professional conductor. And so he was one of the first kind of full-time music directors / conductors.
So what are some things you would share with us, those of us who are looking forward to enjoying this concert? And by the way, even mediated by a screen, thank you so much for taking us to so many interesting places already this season. But what would you tell us about the journey you're going to take us on in February?
Well, it's, you know, I think it's the perfect marriage of lighthearted with profound, you know, and Mendelssohn's, and first of all, each of these pieces is exuberant in its own kind of youthful way. And that's the kind of common thread there. And of course, Germans think of Italy as, like, you know, the promised land, because it's La Dolce Vita and the food and the sun. And, you know, I mean, it's, and who can disagree? You know, I love all things German. I love all things Italian too, you know. So for the German perspective on Italy, I mean, it's, you know, Pilgrim's Chorus, the Saltarello, you know, the last movement is, you know, this incredibly intense dance, just the bubbling forth and sunshine of the first movement. You know, it's just a journey. All of these are just vibrant, youthful journeys, and it's music that's just pure enjoyment, all of it. You know, the Mozart Concerto, Mozart wrote for himself, and you know, Mozart, of course, was a great pianist, but also, when he wanted to be, was like one of the best violinists in Europe at the time. You know, so I mean, it's just, you know, to be able to rub shoulders with the talents, the likes of Mozart and Mendelssohn. I mean, it's a privilege for all of us, the audience, for me, for the orchestra. You know, it's just kind of mind-boggling, the amount of intelligence and ability that's on display here. And so, that being said, it's just sheer enjoyment. I mean, there's nothing, you know, I mean, I think these pieces are easily digestible and easily understood, and the program is meant to be that way. And so anyway, it's just enjoyment and energy and exuberance. And I have to say, you know, that what's difficult about Mendelssohn, what's difficult about all these pieces are they have to sound so light and so tossed off. And in order to do that, it takes real virtuoso players. And so they're working incredibly hard to create this kind of, light atmosphere, and it's a difficult thing to do, but they do it incredibly well.
Well, and we've kind of buried that lead about youth, and I know you wouldn't want to wrap up without talking about this orchestra has an extraordinary commitment to the youth of its community, really extraordinary. And so thank you for bringing that together musically, but also very physically celebrating this young artist, Linda Phan, emblematic of everything that our symphony does to enrich the lives of our young people across the Quad Cities. And the organization invests heavily in it, and we as patrons have a chance to invest in it through you. So thank you.
Well, my pleasure, my pleasure. And again, it's a little, it's not normal. Like usually the concerto winner doesn't play on a Masterworks, but it worked out incredibly well that way. And so, we've, again, like we've talked about all season, we've had the opportunity because of the limitations put on us to explore different repertoire, to have different soloists than we normally would, and so, we've hopefully made the very best out of a difficult situation, for our audience and certainly for the young musicians, for Linda. I mean, it's a great, to play with an orchestra like at age 11. I mean, that's, no matter how you slice it, I mean, it's a big honor for her, and so it's, it's fun to be able to create these scenarios given the limitations and see what we as artists and as creative people can come up with. And, I'm quite proud of it. And of course, the musicians are incredibly grateful. There are lots of orchestras that aren't playing at all. And so, we're all just very grateful that we have the opportunity to share with you, our audience, and to come together on the stage and make music together.
Well, I want to make clear, I sit on the board of Visit Quad Cities and not on the Leipzig Convention and Visitors Bureau. But you and I have talked about the Mendelssohn House before and how it has a special high-tech room where you can digitally conduct one of several Mendelssohn pieces. Now, I tried to do the Overture to Midsummer Night's Dream, and it came out sounding like Pop Goes the Weasel. But did you do that, and what piece did you do?
I did. I don't remember what piece, but it's amazing technology because yes. You can slow, I mean, it actually, and I took students from the University of Minnesota, including conducting students. I mean, it can slow down like an orchestra, but keep the pitch, and somehow, like, I don't know how they do it, but like, you can speed up, you can slow down, you can do fast. It actually follows your conducting. And it's wacky. I mean, it's very cool. Of course, I, as a professional conductor, just kind of fooled around some and, had a good time doing that, but it's really cool. It's really cool. Yeah. Look, Leipzig is my favorite German city. Berlin. Also, yeah. I love Leipzig. I would, yeah. If I had a pied de terre somewhere, it would be Leipzig. I'll tell you. I love the city.
It took me.
And the Bach component.
Yes.
Mendelssohn, the Gevant House. The whole history with East Germany. I mean, it's a fascinating place.
Well, we are going to wrap things up here in a minute, but I can't do that, Maestro, without once again thanking you for your time, and thanks to Chris Connolly, Wells Fargo Advisors, for helping to make this series possible, and all of the wonderful audience members. But primarily, Maestro, just know that although we can't wait to see you again in person, this is a wonderful treat you give us by being part of this series.
Thanks. Great to speak with you as always.